Welcome to Driving the Lane with Randy Kraayenbrink and Chuck Rowe, a podcast presented by News Talk 1540 KXCL. Now, Driving the Lane.
Welcome to Driving the Lane. Randy Kraayenbrink, Chuck Rowe, the show where we talk about mostly one thing and one thing only, and that is
Panther basketball.
Now, it's important that we remind you that although we are the official UNI basketball show for News Talk 1540 KXCL, our comments may not reflect the feelings of our friends at UNI. However, Randy is a former player, and I have a Wyatt Lowhouse jersey in back of me, so this show is going to be as official as it's going to get. We also want to let you know that portions of this show can be heard on KXCL and the entire show found on their website. So we have not done the show in a long time, Randy. It's been a while because of COVID. So we apologize to everybody. But for the first time, we're going to be doing something new and doing this video instead of just on the radio. How do you feel about that?
Well, I've got a face for radio, Chuck, but we're going to go for it.
Yeah. So, I mean, if it wasn't for video, people wouldn't get to see this amazing picture of yourself right in back of you.
Yeah. I dug that out of the basement and just stuck it behind me there. It's kind of a full, it's going to get blurry here for a second, but it's just an actual game shot there. There you go, Chuck.
Look at those shorts. Love them. Yeah, love them.
Hey, they're coming back.
So hopefully we know how to do this again. It's been a while. Again, apologize to everybody, but because of COVID, it was really hard to figure out how we get into the radio station. And then on top of that, we wanted to be respectful to the UNI basketball team because they were going through a lot of stress and figuring out how to get through COVID. So we just wanted to be respectful to that as well. So, but now we're back, super excited. As always, we have a great show for everyone this week. This week from the 2018-2019 team, we have Miles and Spencer joining us. After that, we have our Midwest Studies Group Nonprofit of the Week. And as always, we finish off with the Financial Architect's Quote of the Week. Great show. Let's get started. Randy, we're honored to have joining us today former players. Drum roll, please. That was a great drum roll. So, Miles and Spencer, thanks for joining us, guys.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having us.
So when you guys used to play at UNI, I would shoot you guys a text and you would quickly say yes. These days, now you're telling me things like you need to check with your boss. You need to make sure you can get off of work. You guys are living life for real now. So what are you guys doing these days?
Yeah, welcome to the real world, right? I am an assistant financial advisor with Ameriprise in Fort Madison, Iowa, which is my hometown where I grew up.
Wow, Randy, you can give some piece of advice to this guy, maybe.
Hey, you got any advice for me?
Work hard, Miles, so you don't have to work hard later.
Gotcha. Hey, it's controllable. I love it.
There you go.
And I recently joined my family business, Harris Golf Cars. So I'm a sales rep in Western Iowa, so pretty much Des Moines and West, and then Nebraska. So go around to golf courses and sell all their golf cars to them. So it's going good.
Okay. So do you get to visit the golf courses here in Waterloo and Cedar Falls then?
I will. It's technically not my territory, but I've gotten to know a few of those guys being in college and also through the business. Sorry.
Did one of you guys set like the place on fire or what's going on? Okay.
I live right on an intersection in Des Moines, and I think there's a fire station right down the street. They always come through this one intersection.
So now if you guys could play one game again, whether it's for a good reason or a bad reason, whether it's maybe a loss you wish you can get back, or maybe it was such an awesome game that you wish you could replay, what would that game be for you?
Go ahead, Spence.
I mean, I would relive just like that whole March Madness experience again. Obviously I wasn't playing. I was redshirting that year, but that was like once in a lifetime opportunity, and the experience of being there was pretty crazy and pretty surreal. And I wish we could have probably experienced that playing our last year, but we all know how that ended. So.
Yeah. Speaking about that, I would have to say I also wasn't playing. Obviously, I tore my ACL, but my senior year against Bradley to make it to the big dance, I would like to replay that one, even if we could just go to the last 2 minutes where we had the lead. Good chance to make it to the tournament.
Yeah, I wish the refs could replay that one.
Yeah.
The last couple minutes. So now the first year you guys played, and you talk about your redshirt year, Spencer, and you had some great senior leaders on the team for both of you guys, between Jeremy Morgan or maybe Clint Bennett, Hunter, etc. What sort of things did you guys learn from those guys?
I would say just the way they handled themselves. That year, we had a lot of ups and downs. We went on some losing streaks. We went on some winning streaks. That's the year we beat North Carolina, then went to the Big Four and beat Iowa State. And then right after that, we turned around and we lost like 2 or 3 games in Hawaii. So it was a season of ups and downs. And I would say just to have that mentality of don't get too high, don't get too low, and how to handle yourself after those either winning streaks or losing streaks.
Yeah, I would say that I learned the different types of leadership styles. All of those people that you mentioned, for me, Hunter, Clint, Bennett, and then for me, even Wyatt. I was also a senior when he was, but we kind of led together. Everybody has a different way of leading, but one thing that all of them have to have in common is you have to lead by example. And I think all of those people did that. And then also just accountability. Everybody was professional. You have to be serious about what you're doing because you're really a role model for those young people coming in. They came straight out of high school for some of them, and they don't really know what it's like to be on a big stage and run. Like basketball is entertainment, but it is also a business. You have to know how big your reach and your platform really is and be professional at all times.
And that leads into my question. You've kind of answered it, but you guys obviously were athletes from probably the age you can't even remember, obviously through junior high, high school, and then you had the opportunity, which most kids do not have, to go on and play in college. And the maybe touch base a little bit on the benefits of all of that, being coached by different people, other leaders. And now you guys have entered the real world, we call it, and now you're making adult decisions. And you both entered the sales world, and so which is, you're kind of your own boss, right? And so kind of talk about how maybe that has helped you become the person you are today, and what because you don't have to get out of bed in the morning if you don't want to, but because you don't punch a clock. So maybe talk about how that maybe inspired you or helped you today as you're making adult decisions.
Oh man, you're speaking my language. I could take up the whole show on this. I actually am in the midst of starting a basketball company that is basically because of all the benefits that basketball has. I don't care who you are, in my opinion. I think every single person should, in one way or another, whether you're the actual athlete or you're just supporting, watching, whatever it is, be involved in basketball. So there's so many things that it can do for you. And speaking of coaching, I think Coach Jake is the prime example. One thing that really set him apart for me was his outlook on basketball. Like, when you're part of UNI, you're not just a player, you're not just a number going out there to get wins. Like, he sees what it does for you and how it correlates to your life after basketball, and instills like great integrity and great life lessons to make sure that you're successful after. So those lessons would be like discipline, accountability, motivation, like hard work, and seeing firsthand how far working hard, like you said, we were all those 6-year-old kids in the gym shooting fadeaways, hoping to be Kobe. And then it comes to fruition when you work hard. You go to the gym every day, you go to the weight room, you eat right, you do all these things just to get on the floor. And all of a sudden you're playing in the tournament for Spencer, or for me, like with the chance to go to the tournament. And it's an incredible feeling. And I've learned so much from it, and I'll take it with me forever.
Yeah.
I would say it goes back to that kind of saying of leaders create leaders, right? We had a great group of leaders, whether that be on the team as players or our coaches, or even like community leaders. UNI has a great, like kind of Miles said, you're bigger than just the team, right? It's a whole family. So I would say one thing that I really took from it is how to just communicate with different types of people, whether that be donors, whether that be coaches, players. There's a wide array of different types of people and different types of people that have different types of communication skills, all that type of stuff. So I think that really helped, especially with my public speaking. Like I'm able to do this right now, probably because I was in some of those interviews after the post-game interviews and pre-game interviews and stuff like that. But it's sometimes when you're in the midst of it, you don't realize it, but then afterwards you can really see a difference on what you've learned.
100%. And I'd like to piggyback off of that. The teamwork is huge. That's one of the biggest skills I think I learned as well, is learning how to work with not only others, but different types of other people. Like that one awesome thing about Northern Iowa is that literally all the players do things out of the off court together and like form a great bond, and everybody loves each other. And that's not always the case, especially in college. You bring people from all kinds of different demographics, different places, and you're there to play basketball. And a lot of times they focus on themselves, and UNI is just a different feeling. Everybody loves each other, including the coaches. All the coaches love each other. They're there to help you, and it's just an awesome place.
You know, and I'll say this on the piggyback side is, as the Cedar Valley community, Waterloo, Cedar Falls, and the surrounding area, the cool part about Northern Iowa, especially basketball, and you kids, you guys, you young men that play there, you're very accessible to the community. And no matter what it was, I mean, you asked to show up at a fifth grade basketball camp or whatever it might have been, and you all were there. And I mean, that's cool. I don't know if it happens in other communities, in other schools, but we're very blessed to have Northern Iowa, Coach Jake, and obviously the fine young men that he brings in here to just give back to the community that they're playing in. And I appreciate that as a grandparent right now. And I've seen you guys interact with my grandson and granddaughters. Cool. Very cool. Thanks.
It's too bad that you guys didn't play during those COVID years, because you could have been like ninth year seniors like these other guys that are still playing, because we miss having you around for that very reason. That's for sure. So, but you know, something that you guys brought up was the coaching staff and communication. And, you know, the team is struggling a little bit. Both of you have been on Panther teams that have gone through some tough times, as you said, Spencer. What are some things that you expect Coach Jake is saying behind those closed doors in order to help keep spirits up?
I would say keep holding each other accountable. Times like this, it's easy to just kind of get down and kind of get into that kind of going through the motions, right? You're a little less motivated. You don't want to put that extra work in a little bit. It kind of gets into your head, right? I would say, I mean, if you see somebody in practice lacking a little bit, hold them accountable, right? And make sure everybody's on the same page. And that's one thing that I learned a lot too, going back to that leadership, is holding each other accountable is very important, especially in times in this, like this, where they may not be clicking on all cylinders. But I mean, we all know what they're capable of, right? I mean, we've seen it, and I think they'll be fine. They have a good group of guys, good group of leadership, that will get them turned around.
Well, Miles, let me ask you a very similar question that you can kind of revolve around. That is, you know the Panther team just as well as anyone else, the offense, the defense, etc. What do you think is not clicking right that you haven't been seeing, where you hope to see some improvement?
I think patience would be my word for it. Coach Jake is very, very detail oriented, and I didn't really understand it when I was there. I was only there for 2 years, and it took me a year and a half before it really got to me. I think we're young right now, and I think Coach Jake has a system that's set in place, and the system works. I think it's a very detailed system, and you have to run it perfectly for it to be executed. And I think there's just it's going to take a little bit more time for the rotations to work, for everybody to know their role, for them to make the right decisions. Like, the difference between winning and losing is like is this big. Like great and good is very small. And I think as the year goes on, they're going to get more comfortable with each other. They're going to get more comfortable with the system, the rotations, and the little things. And I think in the long run, that's going to make a big difference for them, because we all know where the talent level is. They have a team right now that has some pretty high potential for sure, and I think they're going to reach it.
Well, you guys have some former teammates like AJ, Austin, Trey, Taiwan, etc. Again, pretend you could be like ninth year seniors playing on the super seniors tour of yours. You could give some advice to these guys. What would that advice be right now?
My advice would be don't give up. It's easy when things like you see in sports, like momentum is a big deal. When things get bad, the energy in the room can get bad. People can start attacking each other. People freak out and try to change things and do things that they haven't practiced growing up. And I think, like I said earlier, like the system works. And I think they just need to stay patient, stay together, stay positive. And over the course of the year, it's going to work out for them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Just dig in and keep grinding. I mean, come to every day. I mean, it starts with practice, right? Getting into those good habits. I mean, if you're not going to practice hard, you're probably not going to play hard, right? But that's a big thing Coach Jake preached too, is come every day to practice, bring it every day. And obviously if you're not, you get in those bad habits that carry over to games sometimes. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but that's a problem that a lot of teams have is not coming to practice every day, focused on what needs to be done, or not executing in practice. That carries over to games real easy.
I think the two of you hit it on the head. I mean, obviously the talent level is there. Just the chemistry is probably off a little bit, and they'll figure it out. And and when you live by the three, you kind of have to die by the three every once in a while, and that's happened to us, because obviously we've proven we can play with anybody in the country, but we have to shoot the 3-pointer at a very high level. And everybody wants to shoot the 3-pointer.
I think one more thing that could potentially help them is, and I haven't been in the locker room, I've been to one practice, so I don't know for sure, but the intensity level, especially on defense, like we score the ball so well this year, like way better than at least we did when I was there, in my opinion. If you look at points per possession, it's just doing those little things, being intense, being in the right spot on defense, that makes a huge difference. I remember kind of my first experience with actually playing. I didn't play, but I was like on the bench for when we were at Battle for Atlantis and we played Villanova. And I think they were finished as a number 1 seed that year. And I remember we literally we were so intense. We were so ready. They couldn't see the rim. Like they had the best players on the world, and our rotations and our intensity was so good that there was not a chance they were going to make a shot unless it was like some athletic, crazy play that we just physically were not capable of doing. And I think if we can get to that point, then we have a chance to be special this year.
The problem was they did have those athletic guys that could make They had what, 6 NBA players on that team?
Yeah, something crazy like that.
Well, besides some of the obvious answers, and like you said, Miles, you attended a practice, and Spencer, I know you watched some games, and besides the obvious answers that people think of, what other players are you really excited about this year?
So beside the obvious answers, that means don't talk about AJ.
So
I think they have a really good, well-rounded team. Like I think the pieces that they have this year, like everybody has a specific skill set that is very important to making them be the team that they potentially can be. And I think like the guys like Taiwan getting rebounds, Bowen, Nate plays so efficiently. I think all those little key pieces to go around AJ and Fife are huge, and especially getting Fife back healthy will be huge for us too.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They have a good mix of old guys, new guys, and I think that's kind of where that. I guess I don't know, but that could be where that disconnect, the chemistry is, right? Is that old and new kind of trying to blend together. But no, I'm excited to see especially how they respond after a little rough start to the season. Because I mean, especially for the young guys, I mean, some of those older guys have been through it, right? They know how they know what to expect. But as a young guy, freshman, sophomore, you might not know kind of what, I mean, even last year, if this was the first year, there wasn't any fans in the crowd really. The atmosphere is a lot different. I mean, UNI usually gets everybody's best shot in conference, right? So you go to Southern, they have a packed house. You go to Missouri State now, they got a packed house. It's Bradley now. Bradley was packed the first game. There's not, I mean, you get those home games are important because it's a tough road games in the MVC.
Well, last question for you. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just going to reiterate. It's just I'm excited to see how they respond going into conference play, the last few non-conference and into conference play.
Well, last question for you before we get going here, and that is, one, what is it that you miss most about playing at UNI? And to go along with that, how are you keeping your competitive juices filled these days?
Well, I'll start the second one. I am a league all-star, let me tell you. I'm probably played in 3 or 4 what you call old man's leagues now, and I'm probably averaging 30, 10 assists, 10 rebounds, going crazy. So that's how I keep my competitive spirit, because I actually for a while I hated the game. I went through a depression stage of, man, it didn't work out for me, and I felt sorry and didn't want to have anything to do with it. But after that, yeah, it's the league for sure.
Spencer's kind of shaking his head like it's
because he's in the league too. He doesn't average 30. That's why.
I haven't seen Miles play yet, so he could just be blowing smoke. No, I play in the league down here in Des Moines as well. Me, Lincoln, and Luke are actually on a team down here, and it's a competitive league. We got a few guys that have played overseas that have come back, and most of the players have played college basketball in some capacity. So it's a competitive league. I think we lost one game by 20, but that was my first game of the year, so I was getting back into it a little bit. But I also play pickup a couple mornings a week with a good group, mostly ex Drake players. I play with Adam Emenecker in kind of that group, but I keep trying to get back into it, so it's going good, and it's like Miles said, it's good to stay competitive, right? I mean, sales is somewhat competitive, but it doesn't fill those all the competitive juices that you need after retiring from college basketball,
Yeah, they need my help on the team. I've been trying to play for them, and they won't let me sub.
I feel like Miles is saying right now, Spencer, I want you to bring your team to where I am, and let's find a playground that we can play at right now.
Let's get it going.
I don't know. I mean, Des Moines, Fort Madison, like
I was playing Fort Madison. I don't know. Iowa City.
Anyways, hey guys, thanks a lot for joining us today. We really appreciate it. It was great having you and seeing you guys again after such a long time.
Hey, I appreciate it.
You guys are looking good. Keep it up.
Yeah, thanks. That's a good compliment I haven't got for a while. So.
Yep.
I know, it's too bad that they didn't allow college players to get paid back then. These guys would have gotten like top dollar for their model skills, right? I mean,
yeah, I would have been living in a house instead of an apartment.
So, hey, thanks again, guys. Have a good one.
Hey, thank you. See you guys.
As everyone knows, Randy and I have a big heart for community nonprofits, and it's time for the Midwest Studies Group Nonprofit of the Week. Today we have, drum roll please, Randy, Hannah Luce from the Waterloo Schools Foundation. Thanks for joining us, Hannah.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate being here today.
So we're excited to have you because you're a former Panther yourself, but maybe you could tell us, what does your organization do?
Yes. So like you said, I'm with the Waterloo Schools Foundation, and we are a 501c3 nonprofit that exists to fund, inspire, and promote academic opportunities for all in the Waterloo schools. So we have 3 main ways that we support the schools. We're not technically with the district, but we work in partnership with them. So we're a separate entity which allows us to do some extra things for our teachers and students. But our first funding initiative is our Young Scholars Grant. So those go to help support students who are interested in unique academic opportunities they may have not otherwise been able to have or afford. And then next is our Innovative Learning Grants. And those are for teachers who want to implement innovative projects or lessons or just kind of opportunities to learn within the schools. And then lastly, we have our district initiatives. So those are more large scale and long term. So for example, like last year during the height of the pandemic, the foundation was able to support $120,000 worth of COVID-19 relief for the schools, which was fantastic because our schools really needed it. Our educators were on the front lines and they still are today. It's been a hard year, but we're just here to support them. And we're hoping that COVID-19 funding can just last and help continue in our schools and support them throughout years to come. So some of that funding went to like Chromebooks, so students could have greater internet access at home, additional like mass or building costs. So if you wanted to have more recess equipment, so there's less contact between students or other things like that, it really went a long way. And we're just proud to be here and be able to support our students and teachers.
Very cool, Hannah. And we appreciate, obviously, the community, Waterloo Schools, and the Cedar Valley just appreciates everything you do. So why did you choose to get into a not-for-profit? And what led you, maybe what in your past said, here's what I want to be or what I want to do when I grow up?
Yeah, so like Chuck had mentioned, I am a recent alum. I actually graduated this past May. And I was interested in nonprofits. I studied nonprofits in my undergrad, and I just was a volunteer when I was young. I remember my first experience volunteering was when I was 5 years old. It was through a church opportunity back home with my parents, and I just fell in love. And I know that every day I come to work and I'm making a difference, and I'm making a difference in a community that has supported me so much. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to stay in the Cedar Valley after graduating, is because there's a great community here. There's a great nonprofit sector here, and we're all in support of one another because we're all have the same end goal of making the community a better place. So I feel like I always find great people doing great work here, and that's why I value the Waterloo Schools and the Waterloo Schools Foundation.
Well, obviously you're doing some great work, and we're really excited to hear about what you're doing. But how could other people learn more about the Waterloo Schools Foundation?
Yes, so we have just created a brand new website. My assistant and I have been hard at work. So if you want to check it out, it's wcsfoundation.org. You can scroll through. We have a lot of ways of how to get involved with our grants and other ways to just find out more about us. We're also active on Facebook. And so if you just search Waterloo Schools Foundation, we have posts going up every day. And we are also housed in a new space called The Hive off of San Martin. So if you want to come and check us out in person, we have a great co-working space up here. It's very Google-esque, and we're just inviting the community to come check us out. And for any questions or things like that, you can feel free to call us at 319-939-9550 because we're always here to help and see how you can and how our community can better support our students and educators.
Perfect. Hannah, thanks for joining us. I know that was brief, but we're just reaching out to other not-for-profits, and you're the first one to get a drum roll.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and always happy to talk about the nonprofit sector and the Waterloo Schools Foundation.
Perfect. Thanks, Hannah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That leads us to the financial architect's quote of the week.
You got it, Chuck. Here it is. You never look good trying to make someone else look bad.
There you go. Great quote. Love it. So good for you. Good for me. Good for everybody. So time to say goodbye from Chuck and Randy. Thanks for joining us. Catch you next week. Enter the closing music.